Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 178. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+. With us tonight we have Masataki Wasa. Masataki is webmaster of wasaweb.net in the UK. He's also a Google top contributor on the AdSense and also the Google Plus help community. You can find Masataki at wasaweb.net. Senior SEO Manager for Zendesk, Micah Fisher-Kirshner lives on the west coast of, is it the west coast of the USA? And Micah is, where are you speaking?
Let's see. I'm doing a workshop on in-house SEO the day before SMX, and then speaking on the expanding nature of SEO for MarTech 2016.
Cool, man. Cool. And Rob Mars is an AdWords aficionado. He's on a website that can be found in the Netherlands as marketbiz.nl, marketbiz, marketbiz.nl. Rob is also a Google top contributor on the AdWords, Web Search, and Webmasters help community in Dutch. Is that right? All right. Let's have a look at our first question. I'll just tweet our starting point. Okay. Let's have a look at our first question. This one from Power Power. Is it okay to share these posts on my blog first and then on other websites? Pawan said, I've recently started writing as a guest author on a few websites. Is it okay to share these posts on my blog first and then on other websites and social media / networks? Or will this be content duplication, and might Google penalize my main website? Please advise.
So, how do I go with this? Okay, so for the social networks, it's perfectly fine to share it. When it comes to putting it on your blog first before going to the actual post being on other sites, you often find a lot of writers don't want you to put it on your own site before that. They want it to be unique. And part of that is the duplication. It's partially, it's more that a single article is not going to be a big problem, but the issue is more that the traffic credit, who's Google kind of potentially of who's seeing it first, will go to the site either that has it first or the site with the larger authority. It's more or less kind of a bit of bad, I don't want to say mojo, but basically it's not the right thing to do without asking the other site first, with the exception where if you provide credit back to the article where it's essentially supposed to be living, and credit can be, in this case, would have to be through a canonical tag. It's a way to just tell Google, hey, give credit to the original post located here and have that be the one that shows up first in Google's search results. In that situation, you're at least showcasing kind of the credit, as well as you should in the post on your own blog note where it was originally hosted. Those are kind of the reasons why. The whole point of doing a guest guest post and writing for that is the fact that you're putting it out there on somebody else's site first, and so having it pushed elsewhere before then is not exactly good karma in that way.
Mm-hmm. Would anybody like to add to Micah? Okay, Pawan, I hope you found what you need here, and let's move on to the next. John Pitcher, creating directory links with anchor text. This is an interesting one. A customer has a domain name XYZ, but throughout the website they refer to themselves as company name ABC. In the footer they have a line saying that ABC is a trading name of XYZ. When they create links to the site, for example directory links, should they use anchor text if anchor text is required of ABC company name or XYZ domain name? Will this discrepancy between the company name and domain name cause any problems?
I mean, you'll find a lot of larger companies that own multiple properties sometimes do this, and then you also find smaller companies might be under some other kind of LLC that has a different name. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem. It just depends on the extent of which they might be abusing potentially the use of footer links with kind of exact anchor text. If it's along those lines and it starts to look a bit sketchy, then there might be a problem. But generally, if it's an owned company and it's public and they're not trying to kind of hide anything with it, usually it's not a problem.
If ABC is the trading name, then it should be the most used term in the anchor text.
Yes, every time Rob gives a correct answer, an alarm goes off.
I think Rob's point's important because the trading name is what people know you, the business, as, right? So people would, yeah. So if they can have an anchor text, then that's what most people would probably use. So I think the issue might be that would people get confused? If you have a trading name that's separate from, completely different from a domain name.
Yeah,
no, I think it would be most likely, but it's just whether or not. Yeah, I mean, if that's already been set up, it gets sometimes more difficult to change all that. Highlight it again.
Yeah. Well, to my mind too, the only thing I'd add is that using the domain name in the anchor text is a bit superfluous. I mean, the link is the domain is going to the domain name, obviously. So why use it? It's the company name that they want to lead the user, and I mean, if they're focusing on the user, all good things come to those who focus on the user. All right, let's call that an answer. And our next is a question from Francisco Jose and Ibarez Rubio. I think I can't quite read that on my thing here. He said, I have a doubt with the SEO for images of the same thing. So he said, what alt tag may I use for each photo/image when I have 4 photos for the same thing? Example, I have an apartment for sale in Madrid and have 4 photos for the kitchen of the apartment. What about the alt tag for each photo if all of them are about the same place? And he gives some options which can be read on the SEO Questions community on Google+. I won't try and read them out, but you guys have them there on your own list.
Yeah, I think Ryan Kramer's comment on it is pretty close enough to what it needs to be. I would probably write it a bit differently, but yeah, you want to highlight if all 4, technically the four photos all have, yes, it's in a kitchen apartment for sale in Madrid, but the picture is of an electrical appliance, it's of the kitchen itself, it has an oven and some external view. So you want to make sure you're highlighting that, and then if it's, have a sentence to essentially be descriptive of what the image is and where it is, and having all that together will make each photo description unique, which is what you should do. And so I think Ryan Kramer's point of something like, I would, picture of an electrical appliance in a Madrid apartment kitchen that is for sale. So, however that might need to be, but something along those lines. So there's a unique descriptive element for each of the images in the alt tag.
Yeah. Anybody else? David Rozam, copywriter for 30 odd years, SEO for 12, and online tonight for the 16th time. All right. I think that's a good answer. I think we can call that an answer and move on. Any objections?
Well, I didn't listen completely to the answer, but I find it hard to believe that people would be looking to electrical appliances in Madrid and then would expect to see an apartment. So I'm doubting if adding the alt texts will help him to become more valuable for a certain sentence or keyword.
Well, it's just more of, it's about his apartment for sale in Madrid. So it's more to showcase what's in there and what are the features that the apartment has. And then if somehow something breaks, at least then the descriptive element of what the image is there, or maybe someone has difficulty seeing, there could be a descriptive element explaining what the image has. So that's generally why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would like him to think more about what's actually shown on the picture, and that it does help blind people to read what's on there, and it
absolutely.
It doesn't help him that much in SEO, I would say, to add appliances. Unless somebody is looking for an apartment with appliances.
Of course, the other thing is too that if somebody is blind and using a reader to see what's on the site, for that reason alone, it should use a description like Ryan has offered, for example, kitchen of apartment for sale in Madrid dash electrical appliances. That's not likely to trick Googlebot into thinking that there are electrical appliances for sale there, is it?
No.
Okay, let's tweak this one. We're charging through these. We don't have many questions tonight. We'll be up early. I'll have to dock your wages.
0 minus 0 is 0.
We'll go on strike.
You could easily double our wages.
Pale Canugo, he said, actually, I am facing a problem which is related to site links. My client's website doesn't show the site links on Google search results. And also the website doesn't rank on the first position for the brand name World Youth Organization. Now it comes on the second position on Google search results. Can anyone tell me the actual reason why the website is not coming on the #1 position, and why the website doesn't show the site links on Google? My website is www.worldyo.org. A quick reply would be much appreciated. I hope this is quick enough for you, Pale. Yeah, he provides a graphic which can be seen on the SEO Questions community. In the graphic, it seems like he's #3 position there. What do we say to Pale?
Well, there are two, in a sense, questions in that post, weren't there? So one is about site links. Why isn't site links being generated? And the second one is, why is site not ranking first for the search World Youth Organization? I think it's probably easier to start with the second one, why it's not ranking first for that search query, and then perhaps talk about site links later. The first issue, in a sense, is that I think when you search for World Youth Organization, there might be some, what would be the right word, ambiguity as to what people are looking for. Are they looking for specifically for that organization called World Youth Organization, or they're looking for organizations that deal with, globally with youth in general? So it's not entirely clear, I think, to Google what people are looking for. Are they looking for something specific, or are they looking for something broader? And if it's assumed that the person's looking for an organization or organizations rather than that particular organization, then World Youth Alliance, which comes first, might be seen as the most appropriate result for that query, and as such it appears above World Youth Organization.
When I search for it, it shows up on #1 for me. Formidable.
Yeah, actually, it happens to me too. Might be because, where is it based?
So first thing he should do is start looking in his search console what the average position of his site is in Webmaster Tools Search Console.
I see in position 4 on google.com.au with a of course, in these days of semantic search, the one that is beating him in the graphic there is World Youth Alliance, and Google would be looking at alliance and organisation as equivalent.
Yeah, I think the reason why Rob and I are seeing World Youth Organization at the top is because the organization, I think, is based in the UK, so it might be to do with geography. World Youth Alliance, I think, is in the United States. So that might explain why.
Although it's ranking in position 1.
Interesting.
Of course, the thing about site links, Payal should make sure that every page on his site is properly linked internally. There's no real way of knowing what causes site links to turn on, but certainly it's for popular sites and for sites that are properly linked. He may have. Well, actually, I should look. I'll stop talking for a moment and just have a look at the site. Anybody else want to have a look at this, or want to comment on this? Well, I'll just share this screen. I'll just change my sharing. That's what I get, Pale, when I look for. You can see that I've looked. Well, actually, I looked on a Google search and then linked it from Google and received this server error. You should check the Google Search Console for 500 errors. It looks like it's often a database error, but certainly if your site is giving out a lot of these and Googlebot is encountering them, there's no way known that you will get site links. You'd have to make sure that never happens. Or well, if it does happen, it's an isolated incident. Anyway, that makes sense, guys.
Yeah, well, I did get to see the site, and I think what happens also is that they use the abbreviation, is that only the starting letters, mostly, instead of the whole name on their site. So they use WYO to describe themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does to me anyway, Rob. Also, this site is running really slowly for me. I don't know about you guys. I can see it now.
It is very slow for me too.
That's another thing, Pale. If you want Googlebot to respect you, you've got to be respectable. And site speed and site structure are both really important. All this time I've been talking, I'm waiting for a source code page to come up. Still hasn't come up yet. Your hosting's appalling.
Yeah, it's not loading for me either.
Yeah, but guys, there are 4 people at the same time at that site now.
Oh.
It's a DDoS attack.
Oh.
Yeah, no, the website host will put this down as a DDoS.
But yeah, you know, if you want to stay ranking high, you need to make sure your site is more stable.
I see he's using Ajax and some sort of geo-targeting. You'd want to make sure that that's working properly. You've got all this CSS on the page. Why?
Yeah, and there are few divs that are not closed. I'm not so sure how much of that would cause issues, but if you look at line 2400, for example.
Oh, yeah.
The div ID on 2400, it's not closed.
Yeah, the mega menu wrap div is not closed.
Yeah, and there's
And the other thing is, like on this page of on this page of source code, you've got to get to well, really 2,356 lines of code you've got to wade your way through to see the first bit of content. I would be tidying this up, taking the CSS and linking it externally, looking at that Ajax, making sure that it's working the way you think it is. Did that show on the screen, that internal server error? Because don't tell me I didn't put that up on the screen. Oh well. All right. Well, look, Pale. So the elevator statement for Pale is one: look at your hosting, look at your coding, and get it. Maybe run it through the validator. Certainly, there's some blatant coding errors there that. Probably the result of too many late nights and working too hard. And when we're tired, we make some terrible mistakes. And there are some here, Pale. All right, I'm sorry.
He uses an awful lot of H1s in which none of them he states his whole name. So if he would change his H1s to H2 and uses H1 for his name, he will be likely more valued for that name.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I think we've given that a fair answer. Let's look to the next. My goodness, this is from Jazz Martin. He needs suggestions on SEO and PPC. Jazz said, hello, we're about to launch our new website, which is related to rental space and co-working space. So to proceed further with our website promotion via SEO and PPC, we need your suggestions for this website and how we should tackle it. We plan to have about 20 venues which will focus on retail fashion shops and F&B, food and beverage, restaurants and cafes. Our objective will be to approve the concept, and to do this we need to get small brands to book the spaces for a period. Do you suggest to focus the whole budget only in Rochester, the physical location, or keep open to international? What will be the most cost-efficient way to do the trial launch? Looking forward to your response. I'm sorry we didn't get an answer through the week, Jazz. Normally our guys through the week are very quick to pick up.
It's not as much about SEO as about marketing.
True, but isn't it part of the SEO arsenal?
You mean the other way around?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, what was it? The guy from Argentina, or no, from Brazil, Pedro Diaz said recently, and he made a statement. He makes lots of statements, but this one was very good, I thought anyway. I wonder what Micah thinks of it. He said the success of your website is the success of your website is, I can't remember what the exact words he used, but in other words, he meant that the success of your website is dependent on the success of your product. And you know, if your product is very successful, it has buzz about it, and people are interested in it, and they're talking about it, and recommending it, sharing it, and so on. So a successful website is a fundamental outcome from a successful product. So therefore, yeah, I mean, marketing is, and I think marketing has always been within the SEO job description. I certainly don't. You know, I wouldn't confine myself. I wouldn't exclude talking about marketing to any client.
Yeah, not having a. Feedback. Oh, okay. Yeah, a product that's not successful makes it all the harder to do SEO. If your product sucks and is going downhill, you know, who's going to talk about it? Who's going to link to it? Who's going to want to push it out there? And I think that makes life a lot harder, and it's a lot harder to rank. That said, if you have a strong brand, you can oftentimes launch pretty bad products, and people will forgive you. So once your brand is set, you can generally get away with a lot more just because people are, well, let's just say more forgiving. But at least at the initial phase, you need a product to help with things along the way. So, yeah, in terms of going to the question itself, I mean that's, I mean SEO's, at least the setup there is, you know, you need a, as we were probably talking about just with the last one, you need a website that's solidly stable. It doesn't take long to load, but you need to be able to kind of figure out who the people to work with, who's going to talk about the site, who's going to link to it, who's going to blog about it, share it on social media, things that are going to get you out there, that's going to get in front of other eyeballs and people who are going to in turn then talk about it and link to your site. Those are kind of the areas of what's going to matter at the start for your business and for your website, really, to start ranking well. That said, you do need to know what the research is. Like, what are people naturally going to be searching for? Where are they?
Who are his clients?
Yeah.
Where are they? How can he reach them? That will tell him whether he should go local or going local with SEO is a bit, that would cost more time than when you do it over the whole internet. But with PPC, he could start with a smaller region just to have more power in that region to get his message through. If he would do that over a larger area, he would probably have not as much impact as when he does it only local.
Yep, we'll proceed with that in a moment. Micah has to leave us and jump on the train to Silicon Valley. See you later, mate.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Regards to Larry. All right. Well, look, I'm not. I must be missing something. Tell me where I'm going wrong here. He's saying it's related to rental space and co-working space. So my first thought is that that they're renting hot desks, and yet we plan to have about 20 venues which will focus on retail and food and beverage. I don't understand why he needs to focus on. I mean, if it's renting desk space, is that? Am I wrong there?
No, you rent a desk in a cafe or a restaurant.
You rent the desk in a restaurant? No.
Yeah. It's a bit unclear, isn't it? Because,
well, I think it was either Micah or you, Rob, who said probably the most. I think the most valuable. Instead of talking about 20 venues, why not focus on one venue and feeder area and make that work first? Because then you can have the entire team focused on that one area. You could be out there, doing photo ops or I think if you were sitting in a marketing meeting with 20 venues which weren't going well, I'd much rather be there talking about one one target area and I mean if the concept is going to work, it's going to work equally as well in one as in 20. So yeah, I'd be certainly looking at I mean, if you just do one, you'll have 20 times the budget, and you know, if it's going to work, as soon as you've got one locked away and working, you've got the next one to bounce off. Sorry, Jazz. I hope. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Focus is always good.
Missed that, Rob?
It's always good to focus and then really focus and not split your focus.
Later in his question, Jazz actually answers this, and he says, do you suggest to focus the whole budget only in Rochester or keep open to international? What will be the most cost-efficient way to do the trial launch? So, you know, obviously we all agree that focus the whole budget only in Rochester. I'm sorry, normally I do my homework, Jazz, and read through our questions before before our hangout, but unfortunately I had an old friend call in today, and we had a very boozy dinner and a bit of a rush to make it to this hangout. But I'm sober. I am sober, at least. Let me see. Well, I think I'm sober, Rob.
When you have to say that, yeah, that's not a good sign.
Not a good sign? Okay. I have another bourbon and coke. It's coffee Mazataki. All right. Unfortunately, Tim Capper isn't here because he did a great brand relaunch for who was that? That chocolate company in the UK, wasn't it? The chocolate company that's based in the US, but also has a brand in the UK. Do you remember that?
Fine.
Actually, if you have a look on our channel, there is it's a clip, about a 20-minute clip, and basically that we were talking to Tim. He basically gave out all of the answers. Or all that they did to relaunch that brand in the UK, and it was really successful apparently, and generated a lot of media. Can't remember the name of the clip now. I'm hopeless. If I can remember it, or I will try and find it and put the URL on this question, Jazz. If I forget, will you please ask us again? Anyone with something further to add to this? Okay. Let's tweet that. Kincaid, yes, the advertising has asked a question. It's titled the Indirect Outbound Link. He said the anchor text, internal link leading to external link. He said, I've seen some sites having one practice for outbound linking. That is, that it first hyperlinks to an internal page, which is ultimately redirected to an external page. For example, Words SEO predictions for 2016 is linked to a page, and he gives a URL which can be read on the SEO Questions community. And the link from the Kincaid.in blog, SEO-predictions-2016, which redirects to moz.com SEO predictions. Does it have any SEO value, and is it a legitimate practice? Please elaborate if the internal page link is of an old deleted page or a non-existent page. I see Tony Anachik did respond there, and I'm sure it's all right. He said sometimes people do redirects through an internal URL that is disallowed through robots text. Think of it as an alternative way to do rel nofollow. It's an equally valid way of preventing link juice to flow to untrusted or sponsored sources. Or as Google says here, adding a rel nofollow attribute to the A tag. Redirecting links to an intermediate page that is blocked from search engines with a robot's text file, and he gives the link to the relevant Google guidance. I can think of another reason, and it's something that Google does themselves. Any search that you do, like if you pick up, do a search on Google and you'll be presented with a results page, click the link and you won't go directly to the link that's showing in the anchor text. You'll go, first of all, you get a 200 response, then a JavaScript redirect to the site that they're listing. And they do that to gather statistics on who's clicking what and when and where, and the user behavior, like do they go to a site and immediately come back again, and so on. It's a perfectly legitimate practice. Another reason why you might link to an internal page would be for logging. Another reason, if your URLs had extremely long URLs that might confuse the user, or they might be Amazon links, or just ugly links, you might want to link to an internal page and then rewrite that from your database to redirect to the long ugly link. Does it have any SEO value? No. In fact, it has when you're redirecting, it's particularly if you block it in robots text, it has zero value. Any other comments?
Well, I think it's often done just not to make it that obvious that it's actually a non-follow link. So when checked, it looks like a follow link, And when you follow it, you find out it's going to a non-follow link. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. A ploy often used by people selling links. All right, let's move on. By the way, that internal linking to an internal page on the ShopSafe websites, we did that for 15 odd years, and I don't think we were ever penalised for it. Only when we accidentally used a 302, that made things confusing for a while because it confused Googlebot. But yeah, I don't see it as being an illegitimate practice. I think it's just tidy housekeeping, if you can be bothered to do it. All right, let's tweet that and move on to the next. Well, guys, we've done it again. We've answered all of the questions asked on the SEO Questions community for yet another week. Thank you for that. Now we move on to our weekly SEO News Roundup, where we pick up topics of interest from the SEO News community. And here's an article posted by David Rozam. Google doesn't want to clutter the search results with too many rich snippets. Google has done several rich snippet reductions in the search results in the past. And of course, Google only wants to show rich snippets where it makes sense and helps the searcher. So that is why it is hard for a site to always show rich snippets in the search result. It's not just site-specific, but also query-dependent and other criteria. Who made that statement, by the way? There's an article on SEO Roundtable.
It's based on a tweet by Jeanette Ike from the Webmasters.
All right, it was a lady by the name of Zined. Does a good job, Barry Schwartz, doesn't he? Covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Any more on this? Right. Our next article, Google Ads one-click verify for My Business listings. Another one from David Rozam. In April 2014, Google began allowing webmasters to verify their Google My Business listings through the Google Search Console linkage. So if you had a verified website in the Search Console, then you could verify a Google My Business listing if the web address was the same. Avinash Murthy noticed and posted on Twitter that the option is now more visible as one of the ways to verify one of the ways to verify a Google My Business listing directly in the Google Maps results. You can now click verify if the Search Console account is linked up to your account and that business website URL. Interesting. We really need Tim Capper here to give us a little on that. You guys want to comment? We've actually got more viewers than panelists at the moment. We're expecting you guys to do a little bit more.
Well, Rob might know, but can't see him.
He's gone for coffee. You just put a note in the chat there.
Yeah. I think one big question with this is how much scope is there for abuse?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Mr. Taki.
Well, no, I think one question is how much scope is there for abuse? So
abuse.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure how it works, but let's say you've created hundreds of cookie cutter sites. You have verified them in your search console, and you set up fictitious addresses, fictitious businesses to appear in local search. And if you can verify the local listing through Search Console quite easily, then how is that going to work? And thankfully, Rob is back, so he can tell us all.
What's the problem?
We're on number. What number is it? Number 8 on your run list, Rob.
I don't have him.
It's the one where you can verify local listings through your Search Console.
Sorry, number 7 on mine, is it? It's titled Google Ads One-Click Verify for My Business Listings. Well, let's move on, and if you'd like to come back to it, Rob, we can.
I haven't seen it in my search console.
Well, what about this? Wikipedia is working on a search engine to compete with Google. Wikipedia recently received a $250K grant from the Knight Foundation for the first year of work on the Knowledge Engine project. According to the formal agreement between Wikipedia's parent company, Wikimedia, and the Knight Foundation, the purpose of the project is to build a search engine that can oppose Google. Well, let me predict that Google will now give less emphasis to Wikipedia in Google search results. You heard it here first.
It's interesting because the article points at something very interesting. Wikipedia believes, and I'm quoting here the article on Search Engine Journal, Wikipedia believes, according to documents submitted with its grant application, that the only thing holding this project back from being successful is the possibility Google, quote, could suddenly devote resources to a similar project, end quote. It'd be interesting how Google responds to it, because Google cannot suddenly create a corpus of information that Wikipedia has built over a number of years.
Yeah, but I mean, Google wouldn't necessarily seek to replace it. They'd simply drop drop it from search results.
No, I mean, one way to neutralize it from Google's perspective is to actually use Wikipedia more heavily. So instead of Wikipedia having to create a search engine that focuses on its own content and its related and sister sites, Google can try to extract more information and present it in in an answer fashion based on Wikipedia.
Yes, but if you look at Google's history over 15 years, I mean, let's say Google shopping. Okay, so 10 to 15 years ago, we had a huge number of shopping and shopping-related sites, which did basically what Google Shopping does now, and Google simply dropped them from search results, just simply ruled them out of contention and starved them of traffic. Then, later on, Google introduced Google Shopping. Now, Google's done the same thing with travel, and they'll certainly, I mean, almost every result in the top 5 results includes a Wikipedia listing. No, not all. No.
But let's flip it. If Wikipedia can come up with a search engine and then Wikipedia blocks Google from its own articles, then that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because Google won't be able to
I don't believe anybody would ever block Google.
No, it's just a thought exercise. I mean, because the problem is that Google does not have a Wikipedia equivalent, right? They sort of try a bit. They tried a bit with the null thing, but it never took off. So there's a huge amount of information of decent quality on Wikipedia. As you say, a lot of results will return, a lot of queries, will return Wikipedia articles. And just as a thought exercise, if Wikipedia blocks Google and say, look, if you want to search, if you want to get an answer based on the Wikipedia articles, you have to use the Wikipedia search engine. Will enough people use that?
No. And you know, I mean, people don't think that way. People are creatures of habit. They're used to typing a few isolated words into a search bar and being provided with a link which they click. I mean, if people were blocked from Google, and which meant that none of their results showed, then I mean, most people in the world wouldn't even know how to spell Wikipedia. They simply wouldn't find it. At least on a Google search, if they're physically looking for Wikipedia, that they will get it half right, and Google's index will guide them the rest of the way and provide them with a nice, easy link to click. But yes, I mean, what's going to put it in their mind to go to Wikipedia? You know, I mean, I certainly wouldn't. But if it popped up in my search and it was there. The thing is that if I think that if Wikipedia's activity provides a search engine which keeps people away from the Google search pages, they'll simply punish them. They'll simply take it away. There's no morality there. It's Google is extremely jealous of its traffic. It's eventually going to consume, once it learns, everything that's around it. They've already consumed most of what's around it. I mean, so many niches have just dropped out of contention and been replaced with shoddy Google products that are not even a valid replacement, but they still earn money for Google. Google Shopping is appalling.
Isn't it just an article to raise some attention? I mean, 250K to develop a search engine to compete with Google is a bit laughable, isn't it?
2.5 million, but still. Oh, it's a $250,000 grant. Okay, sorry, you're right. $250,000 grant. The budget is 2.5 million. On shoestrings.
Bing didn't succeed. That lady that went away from Google.
I beg to differ. Bing is succeeding, as far as I'm aware. Let me Google Bing statistics. Here am I Googling.
In the Netherlands, it's 2% for Bing. Hey, Tiny Tim.
Hey.
Hey, Tim Kevin.
You alright?
Yeah, we're talking about Wikipedia developing a search engine for Wikipedia entries to compete with Google.
Right.
And I also think that what Google is doing with their knowledge graph and intend to do with it is, although it's taking a lot of content from Wikipedia, it's also competition to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So if Google can find enough resources outside of Wikipedia, which I think it can do, whether it's publications, scholarly articles, things like that, yeah, eventually knowledge graph might be not so reliant on Wikipedia and be as useful, reliable, and credible as Wikipedia.
Yeah. And to avoid that, at Wikipedia they assign 250K.
Here's an article. I'll put it in the chat. It's on Search Engine Land. It's saying that Google's share of the search engine market is 64%, which is what they had in 2008. So 8 years later. but what has picked up is Bing. I'm glad you arrived, Tim, because we had more viewers and panelists a minute ago.
Well, we can go back to that verification of listings by Search Console, because now we have 10.
Okay, what number was that?
That was the previous one, question 8.
Okay. All right, so let's leave this, the Wikipedia working on a search engine to compete with Google, and we'll go back to number 8. Google adds one-click verify for My Business listings. In April 2014, Google began allowing webmasters to verify their Google My Business listings through the Google Search Console linkage. So if you had a verified website in the Search Console, then you could verify a Google My Business listing if the web address was the same.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's all.
Is that news to you, Tim?
What's that?
I read that just for you.
I'm just trying to catch up on some stuff.
Never mind. Let's move on. Where are we? Yeah. Okay, this is an article in the SEM Post, and in this article, Jennifer Slegg of the SEMpost.com repeated a statement made by Gary Illies, and I'll read from the article, which can be linked from the SEO news community on Google+. And she said, Gary Illies from Google commented that when he looked at penguin-affected sites, he saw that they were actually the result of bad SEOs. He then talked about how site owners don't need to hire an SEO, but that if they do, they need to be careful about choosing one. He said, he went on to say, and this just goes back to that there are things that as a site owner or a content owner that you can do without an SEO. I don't say drop all SEOs, because SEO can do also magic. Yeah. Of course they can. But you know, the bit that I thought was absolutely wrong was where he said when he looked at penguin-affected sites, he saw that they were actually the result of bad SEOs. And I call bullshit on that. They're not all the result of bad SEOs, and quite often that they're the result of Google's bad programming, and could also be the result of negative SEO. I mean, Penguin is just it's been a train wreck from day one. I mean, when they first released it, the longest thread in the history of the Google Webmaster Forum, just full of mums and dads sites coming down to tell their stories of bankruptcy. And so my comment was, you know, I have no argument to pick with Jennifer Slegg or Gary Illies, but I want to stress that it's not accurate to say that every site affected by Penguin was due to SEO carried out by either the site owner or a third-party SEO.
Well, as a third-party SEO, you can also see that SEO.
Sorry, Rob.
negative SEO. You can see the third-party SEO also as negative SEO.
Yeah, I probably misread that. I just meant to say that like the SEO wasn't part of the business. It was an external company. But yeah, I mean, it's not true to say that it's not fair for Google to say that all sites affected by Penguin are the result of bad SEO. Any other comments? All right, I'll tweet that. And it's that time again. We've covered all of the questions asked on the SEO Questions community. We've covered all of the news items posted on the SEO News community. If you're still watching, and I can see that you are, we thank you. Your interest in what we do makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again. But for now, it's